Hi, guys. It is Friday, February 19th, 2021, and I am Dr. Shelley. I am a board certified gynecologist specializing in bioidentical hormones, minimally invasive surgery, and health and wellness. And you're catching me on a surgery day. So this is why you're actually catching me in my scrubs, which is rare because I haven't been operating on Fridays as much since COVID hit. But anyway, so I'm in my office, and so excuse it if it's not as quite as glamorous as it normally is. But anyway, happy Friday. Um, as you know, I come on every Friday to give the latest statistics on COVID, any information, updates that have occurred over the week, and discuss anything else new and interesting that I think you guys would want to hear about. So this week, a couple of things. As of course we all know, we are dealing with a major winter storm that is affecting the oh God, right now, the majority, the whole chunk of the Midwest and a lot of the northern portion of the state too. I think at one point the only states that were excluded was four, and Florida, of course, is one of them. I am located in Central Florida, so we are lucky here compared to the rest of the people that are experiencing such horrible weather. The main thing that the way that weather is affecting so far with COVID, of course, are two things. Number one, the concern that people are definitely having to cluster, so they're pretty much hunkering at home. So on the one hand, this is actually a self-induced quarantine, so we actually may see improvement in numbers. But if people are forced into shelters, of course, that could cause an increase of spread. So we'll see as things thaw out and people start moving again, what's going on with that. But I'm actually thinking that we might actually see improvement in the numbers because the majority of people are actually quarantined at home in small units. And so as long as there's the people that are already in that unit don't have COVID, then we should do okay as far as that's concerned. The biggest other issue is the fact that travel's been hindered. So we have the vaccines are not able to get where they're supposed to be going. And so they've had issues with being able to administer vaccines. So obviously limitation because it's freezing outside. So having people get out to actually access the vaccines. But there was already an issue with supply, and now they're seeing even more of an issue with supply because of delivery options. The last thing is that they have had a couple of emergency issues where both we know the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine have to be refrigerated. The Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at very low freezer temperatures in special freezers, and they have had a couple of episodes where both the main generator and the backup generators have failed, and because of that, there was a fear that the vaccines were going to be uh, go bad, so they've had to scramble and get vaccines placed urgently in people that weren't actually scheduled to get them. But the good thing is that no large quantities of vaccines to date have been wasted. So that's the good thing. The bad thing is that people that were scheduled to get their vaccines, a lot of them have, especially people that have not gotten their first dose, a lot of those have been postponed. Those appointments are postponed. So it doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to get them, but they can't get them. Obviously, you can't get something that's not physically there. So until the vaccines are able to be transported appropriately, and they have to be transported in refrigerated trucks that can handle, it can keep the vaccine as cold as it needs to be. So until all that can occur again, there is going to be a slowdown in the number of vaccinations that are occurring across the country. Nothing you can do about that, and it's just the way it is. So let's go over the numbers real quick, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Worldwide, we are up to 110 almost 111 million cases, 2.45 million deaths, and 85.8 million people recovered. Within the United States, we've gotten to 28.5 million, 505,000 dead, and 18.7 million recovered. So glad once again for all the people that are recovered, but we're still losing too many people to this disease. The number still, as far as the lineup, still looking at India with the most cases, but Brazil is very close behind, and Brazil still has more deaths than India does because of the more aggressive Brazilian variant, but also just because of access to healthcare and the protocols in place in India, which have been uh, really good. Russia comes next, and then UK. And once again, put things in perspective, the United States is still 3 times higher in the amount of cases and also in the amount of deaths compared to two times higher in the number of deaths compared to the closest other country. Um, within the United States, California is still with the most cases at 3.49 million, with 48.3 thousand deaths. Texas at 2.58 million with 41.8 thousand deaths. Uh, Florida is third at 1.84 million with 29.4 thousand deaths. And then we come to New York and we come to Illinois. As we mentioned last week, California has surpassed New York in the number of deaths, and Texas is actually rapidly approaching New York's numbers, unfortunately. The um, within I always give our local data because we're located in Central Florida, and so the Florida data we have yesterday, as of yesterday, 5.1 thousand more cases, 165 deaths yesterday, and California had 7.1 thousand cases. The United States, period, had 78.9 thousand. Actually, that data is from February 18th. Yeah, that's it. That's yesterday. Days are slipping by. Um, uh, Percent positive cases, Florida is at 6.4%, which is not bad overall compared to what we were early in the pandemic, where we were as high as 13%. Orange County's at 5.18%, which is where Orlando, Disney, etc. are. And then Lake County is at 9.69%, which is concerning because it is significantly higher than the rest of Central Florida and also than the state overall. Um, the number of cases in Florida, 100 and 9,000 in Orange County, 23.3 thousand in Lake County, deaths 29.9 thousand in Florida total, 1 point a thousand in Orange County, and that doesn't include the non-residents, and 531 in Lake County. And that's concerning because once again, when you look at it, sounds like um, the it sounds like there's way less in Lake County, but if you think about this, Lake County is a much smaller county, and so there's only uh, like there's less than 400,000 people that live in Lake County, whereas there are well over a million people, almost a million and a half people that live in Orange County. And so when you're looking at a death toll in Lake County of 531 people, and then Orange County, which is 3 times larger, only has a thousand deaths, then you have to kind of do that number and realize that those numbers and also the Lake County numbers are going up significantly faster, and and you're looking at almost twice positive rates. So it's definitely concerning data we have to keep an eye on. The median age in for COVID cases in Florida is 40, Orange County younger population 36, and then Lake County older population, and it's at 45. Males to females, females slightly higher than males across the board. So the as far as vaccines, we've had 52 million vaccines administered throughout uh, the country. 11.5% of the population that equates to being vaccinated. Within Florida, we have 2.6 million people that have been vaccinated, and 1.3 million people have received both dosages of the vaccine, whether it was the Pfizer or the Moderna. Concerns, uh, the concerns with the variants. Um, as we all know, there are three major variants that are out there. There's more than that. Just so we're all clear, the virus can mutate and change within every host. That's why you can see sometimes you say, well, there's a whole group that seems to do much worse than other ones. Hi, Lori. That do much worse, and so there's definitely going to be variations on the variants, and that's why some of what you can see as far as how people are responding as well when they get the virus. The big concerns on the variants, the 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 big concern with the UK variant and the South African variant are they seem to be extremely higher contagious rate. Actually, all three, Brazilian one as well. The concern that is held with the Brazilian one is the fact that it appears that people who have had COVID are not as resistant to that. And so that's a concern. They don't have that immunity that we're hoping that people that have had COVID will have. Hi, Victor. And so that's the biggest concern with the Brazilian ones. A, it's more contagious, but B, that people that have already had COVID do not appear to be as immune to it, and that we're seeing a significant spread in Brazil. So we don't want that to go rampant in the United States because that would affect the people that have already had COVID may not have immunity to that, and maybe able to get it again, which we don't want to see happen. The Florida has the whatever you want to say. Um, um, Honorable mention of getting the first Brazilian case. So we just got that diagnosed here. We also have the highest number of the UK variant here. So we have 433 of the UK variant known here in Florida out of 1,400 throughout the United States. The biggest numbers are in southern Florida, but there are at least 52 cases of the UK variant here in central Florida. There are only 5 cases so far known. Yeah, I know you don't want to get COVID again, Eileen. You didn't want to get it the first time. You certainly don't want to get it again. There's 5 of the Brazilian cases known throughout the United States, and like I said, Florida has one. Now, that does not mean, let's all be clear, that there's only 5 cases of the Brazilian variant here in the United States. There has not been a significant amount of testing for variants in the United States. That's one of the things that has been highly criticized is the fact that we were really way behind in testing for variants compared to other countries. So there may be way more cases of all the different variants out, but this is the information that we know as of now. So, as far as the vaccines and the safety against the variants, it appears that the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines have a good amount of immunity against the all 3 of the variants, but a little bit less against the South African variant. So that's the problem with the South African variant is that one seems to not like the vaccines as much. And Johnson and Johnson, which hasn't even hit the market yet, but that one is the one that is of concern for its effectiveness, specifically against the South African variant. It's not as effective as Moderna and Pfizer overall anyway. So whereas Moderna and Pfizer are 95% effective against what we've seen in the United States and what the major global variants are, Johnson and Johnson only comes in at about 70. 2%, and for the South African variant, it appears to be down to 57%. Now, to put things in perspective, the flu vaccine is about 60 to 65%. So you notice that's why people can say, well, there's still a lot of flu that runs around, but it's not. It's still way better than it would be if there wasn't a vaccine at all. So there's still going to be some immunity, but I guess we got a little spoiled with the idea of 95% immunity, and that's not going to be the case, at least at this point, against the South African variant, and certainly not with Johnson and Johnson. Now, what Johnson and Johnson does have is that they're 85% effective against in the South African variant against severe disease. So no one that got the Johnson and Johnson vaccine that got the virus in one of their studies died. So it's still so if the only vaccine you would be able to have access to would be the Johnson and Johnson, it's still going to be way better than your risk of getting the disease without any vaccine. Plus, we don't want to get the vaccine, but we certainly don't want to die. We don't want to get, excuse me, you don't want to get COVID, but you certainly don't want to die of COVID. That's actually the most important thing. And so if you can get a vaccine and not know, but hope that you're going to have significantly better outcome, then that still is favorable. Of course, we don't want to get it at all, but if we can at least not have uh, a severe disease, then that's definitely still a positive. And like I said, it's not even approved yet, so we'll talk more about Johnson and Johnson once it actually rolls out. There was a hope last week. Before all the snowstorms and everything, that we were going to have a significant amount of people vaccinated, and that before May. Now it looks like things are probably going to get pushed back again, but still looking at more favorable data as far as, back a couple of months ago, we were looking at not getting the majority of the public vaccinated until, the end of the year. And so it looks like by the end of the summer, God willing, we're going to start seeing a significant portion of the country vaccinated. And as I mentioned to you guys last week, if you're either anti-vaccine or you're in the age groups that cannot get a vaccine and doesn't look like you're going to get one in the near future, then you may want to consider the ivermectin or any of the other prophylactic therapies, and definitely be boosting your immune system and doing the things that you can do to help to prevent yourself from getting COVID. I did read that Washington, D.C. will be starting to vaccinate their high risk population under the age of 65 starting in March. And so it's different states, once again, different rollout, different um, rules for who gets the vaccine, who doesn't get the vaccine. There, Florida, we have been giving it to the healthcare workers and also to over age 65. We've even gotten it. I mean, there are people that are doing all sorts of crazy things to try to get the vaccines. They just had two women disguised as old ladies trying to get the vaccine. So people, it's kind of that's why I always tell the people that don't want to get it. So you don't have to worry, because there's a lot of people out there that really, really want to get this vaccine and are trying to do lots of things to get it, including pay money, etc., to get the vaccine. So you can sit back and watch the rest of us, because you don't have to worry about it, because there's a lot of people that do want it. So you can sit back and let them get it. So anyway, we I the other thing that was out was that. Um, we thought at first that we didn't see that there was any skew with pregnant women and the virus. Now it appears that pregnant women do appear to be at a higher risk for contracting COVID. So most that's one thing, I'm a OBGYN, and that's one thing. Most pregnant women take it very seriously, and I haven't seen the majority of them. I see a lot of them really um, feeling very protective of the pregnancy over their babies, and really isolating and quarantining um, to make sure that they're safe and that they don't get COVID. So that's a blessing. But if there's anybody out there that is thinking that they are not at a higher risk and that they're pregnant, then no, the data is now coming out that that is not the case. So just be aware of that. And also, as far as illness and death, and we are seeing pregnant women, um, and and especially in the both before they deliver, but right after they deliver as well, dying from COVID and becoming severely ill. So do be aware that pregnancy is certainly not protective, and appears to be actually more so putting you at higher risk. Let me see if there's anything else I was going to talk to you about with that. If not, then I was going to talk to you a little bit. I mean, I know I'm in Florida, and so yes, we don't have to deal with hypothermia. We don't have to deal with usually, and we don't have to usually deal with frostbite. Now, we could have hypothermia here though in Florida because we have a lot of water, and so if you have someone, it doesn't have to be extreme temperatures to get hypothermia. So if you can actually die of hypothermia, believe it or not, in 40-degree temperatures, if you're wet. So if somebody was like say stranded somewhere, they got wet and then they were out in the elements, they could actually die of hypothermia. So it does not have to be, we think of like, being in the severe temperatures like what we're dealing with, what many of the states are dealing with, but it doesn't have to be. So just that's one thing that I wanted you to be aware of. And hypothermia is basically usually, like I said, it's usually when you're exposed to prolonged cold weather, and um, and you have a decreased ability to get warm. And so what you do is that your body just loses all of its temperatures, and so it can't produce enough heat to stay warm. So what will happen is it will start to affect the brain. And so this is important. So the reason why I'm telling you guys, even if you think, okay, well, I don't ever have to deal with hypothermia because I live in Florida or whatever. First of all, there's a lot of people that tune into me that don't live in Florida. So that was one of the reasons why I'm doing it. But also, you may have family members that are somewhere where it's really, really cold. A lot of people are isolated. A lot of elderly people that do not live in nursing homes are isolated in their homes. And so you need to know these things. You need to know the warning signs, so that you can go over them with your family members, because the elderly especially are at a higher risk for hypothermia, and so you need to have that conversation with them. And or you may have a family member that has that's young, and doesn't um, like a young family member that has a baby and isn't that knowledgeable and is by themselves with their baby in their apartment or and doesn't have electricity, etc., and doesn't know basic safety and stuff like that that goes along with hypothermia, and um, and frostbite, etc. So that's why I'm doing this, just in case you think I'm crazy because I'm in Florida. I'm talking about frostbite and I'm talking about hypothermia. But we like there have been carbon monoxide deaths where people have actually gotten into their vehicles in their garages to warm up. Now that's something that you would think doesn't happen. You think that everybody knows that. So obviously everybody doesn't know that. And I think that also when you are freezing to death, you start to once again not think clearly. And so stuff that seems like you would think, okay, well that makes complete sense. Everybody would know that. Well, no, when you're dealing with the situation, sometimes common sense goes out of the window. Sometimes the brain gets foggy because you just can't even think clearly because you're so freaking cold. So that's why we're going over it. Just so anybody wants to know. So anyway, so like I said, it affects the brain. It affects the brain very quickly. And so a lot of people start to not think clearly. And so if I'm not thinking clearly, then yes, I could think, let me go get in the car and warm up. I know I'm cold, so let me get in the car and warm up. I forget that I got to open up that garage, because if I don't open up the garage, I can die of carbon monoxide. They also can start to not be able to move well. The limbs are just, they're cold and they just are not able to move, and so they could end up getting stuck in a place, and freezing to death because they just can't move out of it. And they also can get very confused and end up, instead of staying inside where they have the best chance to be warm, maybe wandering outside because they're that confused, especially the elderly. So it's really important to know. And then the other thing is that you want to keep them dry. And so, you know, sometimes people think, well, I'm going to go take a warm shower, but then they're wet. And so you've got to be careful with that, because then if they can't get warm, now you've got, once again, a wet body that's now cold. And that's the worst case scenario that we can have. Babies, obviously, if you're sitting, everybody, if you're without electricity, if you're without heat, you want to all be in the same room. You want to warm one room, and you want to use the body heat of the other people. So you should never have your baby off in another room and think you got the baby under a lot of blankets and the baby's okay, because the baby will actually become more sluggish and very quiet. So that baby's not going to cry out to tell you that it's cold. And so you need to be checking on your baby, and you should have the baby in the same room where you are, not in a cold bedroom. Um, Once again, don't be out in these cold temperatures. Don't think that you're dressed well enough that you can be out there. You need to be inside when it's really cold outside, especially if you're not familiar with it. We've got people in Texas; they've never seen these kind of temperatures before. We got people in New Orleans, we got people in Alabama. So you don't know what you're doing out there. You don't need to be out there, because it can sneak up on you, and you could end up uh, in trouble. There was a couple, mother and daughter. They left their house because they were freezing, but they decided they were going to go out and hike, to try to get somewhere that was going to take them 3 to 4 hours. They would have never made it. Luckily, somebody picked them up and got them where they needed to go. But if they had actually been out there walking that long, they probably would have died from hypothermia. So the signs, obviously, shivering, just feeling really, really exhausted, confusion, not being able to hang on to things. You can't even hang on to things because things are falling through your hands. You can't remember anything. Speech starts getting slurs, almost like they're having a stroke. And like I said, the big thing is that they get sleepy. So, you know, if you're stuck in your own place, you're sitting there, you don't have electricity, you don't have any way to communicate with somebody, and then this occurs, then that can be a deadly combination. With the babies, the skin can be very bright red, and it's really, really cold. And like I said, they're going to be very lethargic, and they're going to also not be crying, not be fussy. So it's the quiet, withdrawn, and very, very cold baby that you want to do. So you want to, if you have a thermometer, your temperature should never be below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So you definitely, that's considered a medical emergency. You want to warm the person. And I don't even know what's going on as far as access to emergency care in Texas. I haven't heard that they've had any issues with the paramedics being able to get to people. I may be wrong, but definitely, if 911 is available, you need to utilize it. If nothing else, just to have somebody talk you through what's going on. You want to get the person, obviously, into warmth. You want to get any wet clothes off of them. You want to warm the center of the body. That's the chest, that's the neck, that's the head, that's the groin. Those are the areas where you're going to draw the tension. Even if the extremities are cold, if you have to pick, you want to make sure that the core temperature is warm, because your brain needs it. You want your brain, you want your heart, you want your lungs, right? You can use an electric blanket, but of course, a lot of people are sitting without power, so that may not be an option. You've heard it before, but once again, I don't remember what people remember, what they don't remember, but skin to skin. So this is actually where you get nude and you get up under blankets and you warm that person with your body heat. That's actually very, very effective. So it gives you a chance to get snuggly and get close. Warm drinks, not hot, but warm drinks, and no alcohol. Do not give alcohol. But warm drinks will help to warm them. Obviously, you're not pouring a drink down somebody that's unconscious. So if the person is not responsive, please do not pour anything down their throat. You can cause them to choke, and that would be a whole nother situation on top of the one that you're already dealing with. And then you want to wrap them up like a cocoon once you get them warm, to keep them warm, of course. If you go to check on someone, and you think that they are hypothermic, they can actually look like they're dead. So they can be extremely cold, of course. And so you could think, oh my God, and they can be completely unresponsive. And if you don't know what you're doing, you may not be able to tell that they're breathing. You may not be able to tell that they have a pulse. So you should actually, if you know how to do CPR, you actually do start doing CPR. You do call the paramedics. Do not assume that they're dead, because they could just be in a hypothermic state, like almost like a trance state, and they could be still alive. So you have a chance to bring that person back to life. So just remember that. Don't assume that they're dead. So that takes care of hopefully any hypothermia. If you have any questions about that, and then frostbite. And most people know it's like, they think about it like with your fingers. And same thing, being out in the extremities, of course, are people that get stranded, skiing, hiking, etc., are very prone to that. But now, once again, because of the severe temperatures that we're experiencing, everybody can get it. You can get it in New York, you can get it in Texas, you can get it in New Orleans right about now. And so, if you're out in the elements, or if you're in your home and it's that cold, someone was just telling me that somebody had filled their bathtub with water, and it's actually ice. So you know how cold house has to be in order for your water in your tub to freeze. So if it's that cold in your house, you can get frostbite in your house. So you need to be layered up in your house. You need to keep your feet, your toes, your fingers covered. So even if you're in the house, you should be wearing gloves. From what I understand, when I've talked to people that are in these cold environments, most people seem to be doing what they need to be doing. You will lose sensation in that area when you have frostbite. So if you got really, really cold, you wouldn't even know, like you literally can't feel it. And so you might not even know that, and especially like say the nose, if you're not looking at yourself in the mirror, you could actually have frostbite on your nose, and you wouldn't even know unless somebody like looked at you and said, "What's going on there?" So because you actually lose that sense of feeling, so you can't tell that it's hurting, you can't tell that there's something wrong there. The color usually changes as well. Like I said, it's usually end organs, so it's usually fingers, it's usually toes, it's usually the nose, could be the ears. Could be the chin. I haven't seen that one before. It can cause permanent damage. So that's the thing you need to know, that they could actually end up having to amputate that, uh, like the fingers, the toes, or whatever, they get frostbitten. So you certainly do not want that to happen to you. And so that what do you do? Very similar to if you've got the hypothermia, as far as you want to warm the person up. But the difference is that you have to be careful, because the area, whatever it is that actually, if it really has frostbite, what do we think? We think we want to warm it up, right? So if it's our fingers, you might think you want to rub the fingers, like rub them in between your hands, or like if you were helping somebody else, right, you would rub their hands in between your hands. You don't want to do that if it's actually a damaged, frostbitten thing, because you actually damage it. So you can be rougher, and the person doesn't have any feeling, so they can't tell you that it's too much. So don't do that. You could rub the skin off. You could actually damage the actual thing. What you could do, if it's the hands, you can actually put them. If it's you can put them in your armpit. If you don't have any other place to warm them, because this is a warmer place. So warm them here. Obviously, you can sit on your own hands. You can wrap them into blankets or warm things. Do not use a heating pad to that area, because a high risk of burning yourself, because you cannot feel, once again. So you would not know that the heating pad's too hot, and you could actually leave the hand on, or whatever the extremity is, on too long, and you could end up with a burn injury. Also, same thing with the heat lamp, same thing with the stove. So you want to warm up naturally, radiator, all these things. Do not put your the affected areas directly onto any kind of a heat. You want to do more of the body heat, or wrapping them into warm towels, not wet, warm towels, or just regular towels, and layering things out. Um, the and that's another thing. Like I said, you can put it between your own hands, but don't rub it. And I think, oh, and then don't walk on the extremities that are being affected. So if it's your foot, if it's your toes, don't walk on them, because um, it's not a good thing. It could damage them more. And so uh, those are just some tips, because I think that it's stuff that we probably learned a long time ago in science class in grade school, but nobody's probably ever gone over that again. And so if you've never experienced it, and like I said, if you're not normally a hiker or a avid skier that is at risk of being stuck somewhere where you can't have access to heat, then it's something that you've never really given thought to. But given what's going on right now and the fact that we don't know, when there'll be more storms, more power outages, etc. It's something that I thought we should touch base on and just make sure that people remember the basics for treatment of hypothermia, treatment of frostbite. And please, please, please do not remember that carbon monoxide will kill you, and do not um, um, put your car put yourself in your car in a closed environment. I'm sorry, that just you just can't do it. So because that's the same thing. You don't know. I don't like I said. I believe that that was probably hypothermia making those people feel out of sorts, because once if you get carbon monoxide poison, you don't know, once again, that it's happening. You won't. It's not like you're going to be able to realize it and get out later, or open the garage later. So I don't know exactly what was going through their heads, but just remember that you cannot be in a closed environment with a car running. So that's all I have for you guys today. And I am actually going to go up into the cold, but hopefully be able to get back to the warmth next week when I'm supposed to travel back. Of course, a lot of the airports are affected. So if you are flying, make sure you don't miss your flight, because you may not get back, and pay attention, and uh, be aware of what's going on in the state that you're traveling to. I had one of my employees that was planning to go to Texas, and we had to talk her down off the ledge. It was like, have you lost your mind? And she was, so don't, these are unprecedented times, and this is serious, and it really is cold, and you don't want to travel somewhere where they're in a crisis situation. You don't need to add to the crisis. You don't need to put anybody at risk to come pick you up from the airport, or have to feed you, or worry about giving you fluids, or worry about you having access to hot water. The hotels are full, etc. So be aware, and also connect your flights. You can get stranded wherever you go. So remember that if you got a connector flight and you're trying to get somewhere, that you may get stuck in that connector airport. And once again, there you probably will not have access to a hotel room. So do you really want to hang out in whatever airport you're connecting through for several days, which is the worst case scenario? So think about it. Think twice before you travel, and know where you're going, and know what the get well plan is. So as always, have a wonderful weekend. You guys stay healthy. You guys stay safe. I will see you next uh, Friday at 4 p.m. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to subscribe if you follow me on YouTube, like me, do whatever it is you're supposed to do on Facebook. Take care. Bye bye.